Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching Kung Fu Panda 4, starring Jack Black, Awkwafina, Viola Davis, Ian McShane, Dustin Hoffman, and Bryan Cranston. So the Kung Fu Panda series is definitely a favorite amongst DreamWorks fans, with the first two movies being considered two of the best of DreamWorks that has to offer, and the third one being good, but generally not a classic, though definitely not on the level of Shrek the Third's level of disappointment. So, with the fourth Kung Fu Panda movie, after a somewhat successful Netflix series, we get to see Po take the next step on his Dragon Warrior quest, which is to say that he is going to find his successor. But with a story that's pretty predictable and with a villain who's good but not on the same level as the previous antagonists, is this a journey worth taking? Yes, but there are some caveats. So, the story begins with Jack Black, aka Poe, basically uh, vanquishing evil and doing the usual stuff he does as the Dragon Warrior, until Master Shifu, played once again by Dustin Hoffman, claims that he needs to become a spiritual leader for the Valley of Peace, which also means giving the title of Dragon Warrior to a successor. He initially doesn't think he'll find a candidate who's worthy of it until he finds a young thief named Zen, played by Aquafina. Aqua- Aquafina's thief is rather uh, snarky, and she also happens to naturally steal and plunder wherever she goes, but Poe happens to find a hidden bit of potential inside of her, especially when she decides to give him advice about the Chameleon, played by Viola Davis, a shape-shifting sorceress who's able to look like anyone and able to trick anyone to doing anything she wants, who's trying to get the ultimate power of kung fu so she can take over the Valley of Peace in every town and every city around her. So Poe and Jen have to go to Juniper City in order to defeat her, while Bryan Cranston, Poe's dad, and James Hong, Poe's other dad, have to basically go to Juniper City in order to alleviate their concerns about him. So that's all I'll say about the story. The story is generally well done. I do think there's a lot of great comedic asides. I do think that there's a lot of genuinely emotional moments, but it does feel like certain aspects of the story are a bit rushed. For example, Aquafina's character Jen has a backstory, but it feels like some parts of it were kind of cut out for time. And she has some flips arounds with her character that do feel like they could have had more time to sink in. The movie's only an hour and 34 minutes long, but it does feel like a few more minutes could have been added to some of the scenes to basically flesh them out a bit more. But on the other hand, I understand uh, the need to make a story last a certain amount of time for the kids' attention spans, and also to keep things rolling along without the cliches feeling like they're too overbearing. On top of that, the Chameleon, played by Viola Davis, is generally a pretty good antagonist. She is menacing. She has a lot of cool skills unique to her, and I really like a lot of her transformation sequences. But I don't think she's on the same level of Tai Lung, Lord Shen, or some of the other villains that we've had in the series. I think she's a little higher than Kai, considering that he didn't do a whole lot for me. But at the same time, I think Viola Davis does well enough with the character, and she has enough cool elements to make her still a decent antagonist. Speaking of the villains, Tai Lung is the only one whose voice actor, Ian McShane, actually returns for the film, and the Furious Five are limited to voiceless cameos. Granted, that probably saved on the budget when it came to voice actors, but it does feel like some of the magic of the previous films is missing without the Furious Five and without some of the other voices that we're familiar with. But the emotional through line with Aquafina and Jack Black is pretty good. The humor and the action is still there. And I really do think that if they plan to make more of these, that they have a good idea with the new successor that Poe chose. So I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.